9-7. Bust a bus.
All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Hersey Hoops' latest original podcast production, The Network, which features interviews with Hersey basketball alumni across a variety of different career paths. To highlight the connection between interscholastic athletics and career achievement, we hope the network can serve as a bridge between our alumni's experiences in high school basketball with that of their professional successes. The Network podcast is brought to you today by Barrick Inc., softball jerseys, company polos, senior night banners. Call Barrick Inc., who specializes in silk screening and embroidery. They're your go-to call for all promotional needs. When deadlines matter, Barrick delivers. Ask for the legendary Tim Cafaro. Tell him Hersey Basketball sent you. Last, subscribe to Hersey Hoops on Twitter or Instagram for live episodes of the network, which can also be found on YouTube, Spotify, or SoundCloud. Another honor and a privilege to welcome our fourth guest, 2008 graduate of Hersey, Michael Compton, currently a sports science consultant at Fusion Sport. First of all, Mike, welcome to the show. Happy to have you coming in live from Colorado.
Yeah, you got it. Out west. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I think it's a good thing that you got going on, and happy to participate.
All right. So for those of you who don't know, Mike's resume a little bit, he's worked at Stanford, he's worked at DePaul, he's worked at St. John's. He was the head strength and conditioning coordinator at JDI at the church, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But Mike, you've been involved with a lot of different teams at a lot of different levels. You worked with the Hersey team in terms of strength and conditioning a little bit last summer. How would you rate the overall buy-in of the modern day athlete in terms of strength and conditioning? Like, how do you have to go about selling them on the importance or value of strength and conditioning? Is it mainly injury prevention? Is it change when you get into scholarship athletes or high school athletes or pro athletes? Or is it just kind of like an addiction-based thing, working out? So I'm kind of just interested to hear what the level of buy-in is for athletes at different levels.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. It differs between sport to sport as well as athlete to athlete, especially being in 3 different time zones. So East Coast, the Midwest, and then out West and West Coast as well. It's a little bit different. Depends on what the background of the athlete is. If they had some sort of S&C implemented in their high school, they're probably a little bit more prone to understanding the ins and outs of what the weight room can offer. With that being said, it's all about education and educating your athlete. And I'll probably touch on that multiple times throughout this podcast a little bit. But a lot of athletes are intimidated by the weight room, especially if they've never trained before. Because, like the old school, hey, if I lift, it's going to mess up my shot or something like that. I'm sure you've heard it all the time.
Classic.
Yeah. So it's just basically trying to get buy-in. And my first approach on top of the education was, hey, I know I have strength and conditioning coach and I have that coach title, but once I walk in the door, I'm never above or below an athlete, and an athlete is never above or below me. That way I can start to build relationships with the athletes. And the more that I understand the athlete, I can kind of dictate and help assist them. And then going off the injury prevention, it's slowly a term that's being faded out. It's more like, how can we reduce the chance of injury? Because at the end of the day, injuries are going to happen, right? So how can we reduce those chances? And then basically say to the athlete, hey, if we can keep you healthy and then improve your performance on the court, I think it's going to benefit you greatly. So hopefully, obviously it makes it a little bit easier if you can get a weight room warrior in there. Makes your life pretty smooth from that aspect. But for the most part, it's just, educate your athletes a little bit and, build those relationships with them as well.
And a lot of times the proof is either in the performance or how the athlete feels post-performance, which I think, that's something that they can quantify themselves. All right, quick trivia for you. You've worked at 2 universities with probably a couple of the most underrated mascots, the St. John's Red Storm and the Stanford Cardinal, both mascots that don't end in S for a combined 6 years. Can you name 4 other schools whose mascots don't end in S in the NCAA? Go.
Too easy. I didn't even look this up, by the way. So I'm going to be basic. It's Roll Tide, so Crimson Tide.
Okay.
And then the other one would be Fighting Illini would be the second.
Fighting Illini, absolutely. They had not a Notre Dame guy. Are you a Notre Dame guy or no?
No comments.
All right. Okay. So having been at those schools, and again, you've been at DePaul, Stanford, and St. John's, there's a lot of program cultures that you've been around. I know you were at Stanford when a coaching change took place, correct?
Yeah, just for some clarity, I was an intern there, so I was there for like 6 months, so I can't really like tag myself to a specific coach, but been worked with almost every sport out there besides track and field and football.
Okay.
So as far as the culture and stuff goes, you see a lot of differences internally within the university as well as the other universities that I've been associated with.
Okay. And then how does like strength training and athletic training fit into the culture at a highly successful program? Like what are some of the positive behavioral traits that you've noticed from the people who lead, whether it's coaches or athletic trainers or strength trainers, and also the people who follow within a successful culture, or I guess I shouldn't say follow, but, you know, adhere to the standards set by someone in a leadership role?
Yeah, absolutely. I think more the better programs that I've seen actually that wins and losses obviously is a key indicator in regards to like if a program is good, because at the end of the day you're playing a sport, you're competing. Those programs basically it starts from the top down. So if the coach is showing respect to their coaches as well as their athletes, it's going to build more of a team culture. If you're doing different types of activities, team building, things of that nature, there's a lot more buy-in because there's a little bit more trust that, hey, my teammate's going to pick me up when, things hit the fan, or if the coach is there to help kind of just, drive that path for the athlete and things like that. But for the most part, it's if you treat your players with respect and your athletes, respect you back, I think it's an even playing field, and those programs really seem to excel. And then as well as backing your support staff, so like strength and conditioning, athletic trainers, maybe internal PTs, director of operations. If everybody's on the same page and focused on one goal, I think you'll see the success and achievements come from that program.
Okay, so then give me one, like a glimpse into like the week of a scholarship athlete in terms of strength and conditioning. How much heavy lifting are they doing? On what days might they be doing that? Let's say they have, a 3-game week. So they're playing, or a 2-game week rather. Like, so they're playing on, Big Monday on ESPN, and then they're playing a Saturday CBS matinee. What does the strength and conditioning schedule look like around a week like that?
Sure, fair enough. Great question. It's going to vary. So my philosophy and thought process on training is a little bit different than most. The reason being is because when you're in season, like you had just mentioned, and there's a game, we know we have a game here and a game on over the weekend. We basically play to how the body feels for that particular athlete. It made it very easy from a standpoint when I only had 15 guys when I was working just with basketball compared to like, let's say a lacrosse team that has 45 guys. It's a little bit more difficult to kind of just keep a individualized program. So it made my life pretty easy. But for the most part, there's different ways to kind of just tap into their central nervous system. I guess I'll get a little scientific on you. But whether it's like using grip strength or some sort of counter movement jump just to see how fatigued the CNS is, and if they're feeling pretty fresh, we'd probably throw in like a power phase, things of that nature. But if a guy, he's filling out, you could even have an athlete fill out like a wellness questionnaire, things like that. Hey, I'm sore. I'm stressed out because I have, extra schoolwork because we were just on the road. My nutrition has been off. And then they also played 40 minutes, the night before. We're probably going to, tweak his program a little bit just to make sure that he's ready to go for the following, either practice or the game that's coming up. So the program is going to vary. With that being said, I got to give athletes, especially at the Division I level, a lot of credit because they are full-time students and full-time athletes. So if they're on the road, they're doing their study hall, things of that. So there's a lot of outliers that you really need to put into play. And the more you get to understand the athlete and things like that is their background, there could be things going on at home all jokes aside, they might have a relationship that's, kind of throwing them a wrench in the system. So you just really have to listen to the athlete, figure out what's going on physiologically as well as mentally,
Sure.
and kind of tweak the program that
So
way.
the amount of variables that impact a week by week strength and conditioning program are more than most people would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're kind of just stuck and, hand tied to your program, you could be doing the athlete a disservice because he might have a lot of energy left in the tank, so you can hit that power phase to help assist them and increase their performance before the following day. Or they might be trash, so you have to find ways to make sure that they're ready to go. And
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Changing gears a little bit, going back 12 years ago now to your senior year at Hersey. You guys overall went 17-13, managed to go all the way to the sectional championship before you guys lost to Evanston in front of a packed Beardsley Gymnasium. But after like a 500 regular season, what clicked for you guys in the postseason? Like, I know you guys are a particularly close group. Guys like you, Luke, Griffin, Mike Mueller, and some others. But talk to us a little bit about like some of the growing pains of the season that you guys overcame in order to achieve success, like kind of at the end.
Yeah, it was a great season. I love playing with those guys. A ton of memories, obviously, to take with us throughout our lifetime, things of that nature. But I think everybody was just trying to find their role, where they fit on the team, and then we just finally kind of clicked in a sense. And then once we went to postseason, we were playing, I think, number 2 New Trier. So like newspapers and things like that had us beat, obviously. So I think that kind of just lit a fire under us. And once we took it to New Trier and won, we're like, I think this team could, make a nice little run in the playoffs and see how deep we can get. And I guarantee if we played that Evanston game over again, we would have won. If Mike Mueller didn't miss his, fast break dunk, it would have electrified the crowd a little bit, and we would have been rolling.
I'm sure you guys didn't let him hear that down.
Still down.
That's great. Awesome. So tell us a little bit about your latest venture. Before you got to Fusion Sport, you were the head strength and conditioning coach at JDI at the Church in Chicago. What was that program aiming to do, and how rewarding was that experience? And what were some of the learning experiences that you have taken from working with those athletes to your new endeavor in Colorado?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm forever grateful for that experience. I had just moved back to Chicago, and a friend of mine who's in the field, he's actually S&C coach for the Lakers right now, which is great. Really switched on guy had given me a call and said somebody from Nike had reached out to the strength coach with the Chicago Bulls, and they were looking for somebody to help assist, but no college strength coach could participate because obviously it's a violation because you are working with high school athletes. But at the end of the day, Nike, what they were trying to do was say, hey, LeBron James invests $1.5 million into his body. Let's educate the schools around Chicago on how important nutrition is, recovery, strength and conditioning, and obviously basketball. So there is just more than just playing the sport. So what we did is we had obviously a basketball specific, strength conditioning specific, nutrition specific, and we were able to educate for 1 month multiple schools on the importance of how to tie everything together. So we did a little bit of weight training education, skills work on the court, and nutrition. And as far as that goes, bring that experiences. I can't thank my previous athletes enough, as well as the ones that I met at that project. Just like the understanding of what people go through from day to day and their backgrounds and the struggles that they do and what they go through as far as not having those resources. So I just kind of take a big step back, and when I'm working with clients now in this new job and trying to find ways to make sure that either their workflows or their knowledge is used for assistance from us. Things like that. So I think just the experiences of different personalities, things of that nature, have really transitioned to how I communicate with different people.
Sure. Well, as for like a high school a stereotypical high school student, like what aspects of nutrition are overlooked the most, do you think? Obviously, everybody talks about like sleep. High
Yeah,
schools don't value sleep like they should. Probably adults don't either.
yeah,
But
fair.
in terms of nutrition, what is the most overlooked nutritional element?
I just think the real food, what you should like cooking and actually making food and preparing it yourself is overlooked. I mean, looking back in high school, I mean, as a freshman, I was 5'2", like 90 pounds, things like that. And we could just get away with it because we were young and very active, things like that. But nutrition really is that thing that's going to take you over the top. So it's like eating your vegetables, fruits. Obviously, it's very common, but it's well overlooked. And making sure you're getting that natural nutrition that you need to make sure that the body is recovering faster, as well as preparing it for performance.
Okay. And then kind of snowballing into that, you're not the traditional strength and conditioning coach archetype in terms of, size and weight and things like that. Obviously, Mike, you're a strong, healthy guy. But, you're not the, pumping creatine shakes and blood doping with Lance and stuff like that. Do you find it harder to gain credibility in your field with athletes, specifically being an average sized guy? And also, you're not a yeller and a screamer in the weight room a lot of times. Like you lead with, your intellect and insight. And you seem pretty comfortable in your own skin in that way. Was there a period where you tried to do things another way and had a realization that it just wasn't you and you couldn't lead like that? And how have you effectively blended your personality with your passion, I guess?
Sure, fair enough. I'd have to agree with that question. And actually, it's been brought up multiple times. But like the first off, I guess the first thing is I think that would play a negative if I worked with football, just because like that persona of like big, like strong guys coming in the weight room, like that meathead mentality in a sense. That's just what strength and conditioning coaches are portrayed as. So you kind of just feel like you have to fit that role. With that being said, it was kind of the opposite with a lot of the sports that I've worked with early on, like men's soccer, golf, tennis. Like they walk in and they see this kind of just like guy that kind of looks like them, fit, athletic, things like that. So I think to a sense, it kind of helped me. But with more of the physical sports, with like lacrosse, things like that, I really had to build a relationship with those athletes for them to understand that my knowledge and expertise and things like my knowledge and expertise really could help them in a way. With that being said, backtrack a little bit. But I guess I'll just kind of jump to the next question, because that helps me with my coaching. Is like yeller or screamer is one. Obviously, I was, younger in my career or younger in my life, I had a vocal cord injury, so I've never been that yeller or a screamer, things like that. So I had to find different ways to connect with the athlete, and it's just kind of my personality. After many years of shadowing different coaches, I found what worked and what didn't work for them, and it might have not worked for me. And for me, yelling and screaming in an S&C setting and environment isn't a way to get athletes to do what you want them to do. I think yelling is only needed in certain aspects. If a guy's late or, you kind of set the tone that way. But if I come into the room and just ask for that respect, I'm not going to get it back. So they knew that if I was actually pissed, the yelling and things of that nature, it really meant something. And at the end of the day, coach was tagged to our title, so strength conditioning coach. So we're in the weight room and we're coaching technique. We're educating our athletes and things like that. So I didn't really feel like it fit my my coaching philosophy, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And then tell us a little bit about your role at Fusion Sport and what Fusion Sport's role is with athletes of all different levels. I know there's MLB and NBA, and other professional league affiliations, as well as some military affiliations that are starting to track data, and kind of the combination of math and science elements into a performance field?
Yeah. So a little bit backstory is like Fusion Sports. Obviously, we're sports science consultants. It's more so just first off teaching how our software is used. So an athlete managing system, data repository, housing that information, and basically flagging or prepping for different scenarios with athletes and using that, sports science experience and kind of just making sure that our athletes stay healthy and tapping into those different areas that athletes can get to as far as their potential. But it's been a pretty eye-opening experience. I've learned a ton working with the company. I mean, at times we're sitting in rooms with, some of the smartest sports scientists across the world. And to be able to work with many different organizations and universities, and even the military aspect, it kind of makes you take a step back and realize that there's more than just that strength and conditioning, because that's what my profession was for 10 years. But there's other things that play into that role, and trying to find different ways to make sure that all of them fit together rather than putting kind of just all your eggs in one basket. So I'm very grateful that I'm getting to learn more and putting more tools in my toolbox. That way I'm prepped for whatever the future holds.
Sure. And then ultimately, like, what was your original light bulb moment when it came to the field of exercise sports science? Did you just you enjoyed working out and being healthy and all the elements that came into it, and you're like, yeah, I can make a career out of this? Is it something you've always been interested in? And then, like, what is your overall goal in the industry? Obviously, you mentioned it kind of with a broad stroke in the sense that help people become more informed in preventing injuries from happening, whether it's in sport or in the military or, just in everyday life. But kind of explain the transformation of your goal and your dream, I guess, within the industry as well.
Yeah. So I'll take a couple steps back. Is when I first went to college, I actually majored in accounting for 2 years. And I just kind of funny now because I actually sit behind a desk, but I didn't see myself sitting behind a desk for many years and just kind of just crunching numbers. So I went back to what I enjoyed, which was sports. And I was like, how can I get into sports and things like that? And I stumbled upon kinesiology, read up on it. And I really was fascinated how the body, kind of just moves and how it operates. So I dove in a little bit deeper, and it just was like, wow, this is great. Now I can help.
You went from accounting to kinesiology. That's a very difficult major to another very difficult major. So you weren't afraid of the book work.
No, I've still graduated 4 years too.
Exactly.
Had a heavy class load, let's say.
Yeah.
But I just went back to something that I enjoyed, and I really enjoy helping people. So there's many athletes that I still stay in contact, write programs for them, help a couple family members as far as like health and things like that. So I think obviously the human body is spectacular, and it's awesome, and I love learning every day more and more about it. So it's definitely something that I'm happy to be in as far as a profession. And then as far as fusion sport and planning to get back into working a pro team, as of now, I'm pretty content with the company that I work with. I mean, technically, we're Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and there's nothing heard like that in the field of sports. Usually, I'm used to like 14-hour days, Monday through Sunday. Might have 2 weeks off in the middle of the year, but now I can take vacation. I can go to weddings. I can go to family events, things like that. So it'll be tough unless there's the right situation to kind of get back into sports. But maybe 10, 15 years from now, like to be a high performance manager, put together a nice team to make sure that we're taking athletes to the next level, and obviously getting a couple W's along the way. But other than that, fairly pleased with the company that I work with. And I believe the next question was return to activity with things like that. So I mean, we do that within our company now. So I still get a little taste of making sure that athletes stay healthy. They're performing at their best. It's just we're not in the trenches anymore like we were or like I was before as a strength and conditioning coach.
Sure.
And then
is is that something that you miss, is like the competitive element of it?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about this with some of my old colleagues and friends that are still in the field, and that healthy banter in the weight room with your athletes and things like that is I definitely miss. And then you're sitting on the bench in the middle of a tough competitive game. It really brings back and that fire that you can have when you compete. I mean, I think whether if you're an ex-athlete or a current athlete, that competitiveness is always going to be there no matter what. Even if you're playing in a 30 and up YMCA game, you're gonna bring the intensity, things like that. So
Sure. And then last question, like at a professional level and having dealt with professional athletes, a lot of them have their own individual strength and conditioning coaches, and then they have a team strength and conditioning coach. How much are those people working in harmony with each other? Because I would assume like, in the NBA or in the major leagues, especially at a time like we're in now, where a lot has been shut off and people might be working, exclusively with their trainer, for example. How do all those people have to work together and kind of mesh their skills and their, workouts or nutrition plans, whatever it is, with that of the larger entity?
yeah, a tough question because I think it varies from you got people that communicate, whether it's like their own personal trainer with the organization's S&C coach. Are they communicating, hey, in the off season, can you kind of just focus on this or that? And then you have, and they're going to agree, and they're going to be like, make sure that they invest what's best for the athlete. And then you have the other guy who's all over social media. He's got, that professional athlete that's taken his private facility to the top. And he's just using him as a way to kind of just bring business in rather than focusing on the athlete, the knowledge, the education on what to do. So I think you have two different sides of the spectrum. It's definitely a tough position to be in, especially if you're associated with the organization, because you're with the athlete probably 90% of the year. And then those, 2 or 3 months when they get to go off, you'd hope that you built that good relationship and educated the athlete on, hey, we need to focus on this because when you get back, we know what type of situation you're going to be in. So very tough question. You just got to hope that there's good communication between the athlete and personal trainer. But listen, at the end of the day, the athlete is kind of just going to do what he wants to do, and whether it's good or bad, and it is their body, so they're going to take care of it, and they're going to invest and make a decision that's best for them, which you have to support and appreciate. So
awesome. All right. Thanks again, Mike, for your willingness, to be our fourth guest on the network. Follow her at Hersey Hoops on Twitter and Instagram for live episodes of the network, and follow the podcast on YouTube for the full visual experience, or Spotify, SoundCloud for the audio version. Thanks again, Michael Compton, Hersey class of 2008, Eastern Illinois class of 2012.
Yes, got it spot on.
Panther Pride, man. All right.
Absolutely.
With no delay into what you saying, yo. Silly with your ice, grilly with the dilly, yo. When I be on the mic, yes, I do my duty, yo. While up in the club like we while in the studio. You know when to violate, baby, really and truly, yo, my man.